Michael Knowles absolutely schools a clueless leftist student who is just so supportive of abortion. Guys, I think this is a fun video and very interesting. And I say that because the arguments this girl is making in this clip that you'll see in a moment here they're really the same arguments that most pro-choicers make in general, which is to say that they are completely based on ignorance, often very close-minded, and frankly have no merit whatsoever. So it's gonna be a good video, guys. We're gonna get right into it. But first, everybody, please make sure you like our video, share it around, and subscribe to the Resist the Mainstream YouTube channel. Why subscribe, you may ask? Let me tell you. Because when you subscribe, we get more videos out and we keep delivering this great content to you guys. So please do it, and we really appreciate your support. I'm your host, Darian, and welcome to the Resist the Mainstream YouTube channel.
You keep defining abortion as the murder of babies, which biological fact is you would say most abortions are done before they are actually babies. It's still just a fetus. So my question...
Do you know what the word fetus means?
It's just a cluster, a zygote developing into a baby eventually.
The word fetus, it's a Latin word, and it just means offspring. That's all it means. It just means the next generation of a being. So, but that's what a baby is also. I mean, that's what you would call your adult child someday once he's grown, hopefully if he hasn't been murdered.
Can I ask my question?
Well, I'm just like to clarify this point. You would call your adult child your offspring too.
She literally says about offspring, does that mean baby? You know, like it was some kind of gotcha. We have lost IQ as a generation, and it shows. And I'm not just saying that facetiously or anything, by the way. Americans and people in the West broadly in general have literally dropped in IQ points. You know, you always hear about how, oh, we have the modern society, we're smarter than ever. Yeah, no, look into it. It's bad.
But all of these terms that you might use, fetus, embryo, the one they love is zygote, which sounds like a Pokemon, but they use all these different terms, but it's all referring to the same being, and you were that being once. You, the person who's standing here right now.
Do any of us have a memory of being that being?
No, I mean, I don't have a memory of last Thursday, frankly. It's been a very busy week, but the lack of a memory doesn't mean that it's all right to murder me.
Well, anyways, my question is, you stress murdering babies a lot, but when it comes to murdering babies, kids, and everything in everyday shootings that keep happening, you say nothing. So I ask, why is it okay to murder babies when it's regulating women but not regulating guns?
No, I say quite a lot about that, actually. I think the crime is a terrible problem, and I think it's just awful that liberals have funded and intentionally installed liberal DAs who won't prosecute violent criminals. This has led to an increase in violent crime, and it's awful. I totally oppose that. But it's not me and it's not my side that's funding that sort of thing. Now, you say, why wouldn't I want to regulate guns? Guns are very regulated in the United States as it is, and I've yet to hear one gun control proposal that would stop any of these shooting incidents that people talk about. People focus on the sensationalized ones from the news, a school shooting or a movie theater shooting. No proposed gun control legislation of the last 30 years would have stopped any of those. And the majority of the shootings are gang-related, and they're handgun shootings. And so I'm all for cracking down on those gangs and throwing them all in the can, but it's usually the liberals telling me that we have to abolish the police and go soft on crime, and you know, they were just failed by society, and so we can't put them in prison, and we have to abolish the prisons too. That's not me. I'm all for it. You want to get me a bill, you want to elect me to office and get a bill in front of me that will crack down on gang crime and these gangsters using handguns to kill kids, let's do it. I'd sign that in 2 seconds. But it's not up to me, unfortunately. It's up to the side that I suspect you would consider yourself to be on.
Facts. Leftists are pro-crime, and there are a myriad of examples of this where you have disgusting, violent, and savage criminals going and doing crazy things and then just getting let out of jail right after they get arrested like it's nothing. This is true.
To a side that you're often a part of, and even if it's not you specifically, it's your friends and the people you support that just continue to, like, it's just, you aren't considering both sides and how, like, saying one thing can just contradict the other thing.
How do you think I've done that?
By saying you're murdering babies, blah, 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 just over and over again, but just not mentioning any of the babies being murdered every single day in shootings that haven't even made it to major news outlets because they're so common.
No, well, that wouldn't be a contradiction or a hypocrisy or anything. I'm focusing on one particular issue called abortion, but I actually mentioned in the speech tonight that specifically on the issue of black people being murdered, 10,000 black people are murdered every year with guns and knives and hammers and the like, but 242,000 black people at the very least are murdered through abortion. So that would seem to be a more pressing issue, but I brought it up. I'm all for trying to reduce the murder rate. Unfortunately, liberal DAs are not allowing us to do that. So, you're more than welcome to convince your fellow liberals to stop funding these people and to start arresting criminals. But my side of the political aisle has been arguing to arrest and keep those criminals locked up for a very long time. And so there's very little we can do if the other side of the aisle won't work with us.
So hang tight, guys, because we have another cool clip of Michael talking about this topic of abortion coming up in just a moment here. Couple of quick thoughts. Something you always notice with people who are in favor of killing babies, or pro-choice, as some prefer to call it, is that they're profoundly ignorant on the subject all the time. For that example, right in the beginning, when the girl says, oh yeah, well, it's a fetus, not a baby. She doesn't even know that fetus means baby. And then when Knowles says, oh yeah, it's offspring, she says, oh, well, does offspring mean baby? As if that was a gotcha on her part. I don't need to explain why that's stupid, because I think you're all smart and know why. And by the way, I myself used to be very ignorant on this issue, and I have no issues with admitting that. To my old college roommate, who I used to kind of, I wouldn't say so much debate as we had discussions on the topic, you were right. I remember he was very pro-life, and I lean more toward the pro-choice side. Certainly not any of the before birth thing. I thought that was crazy. I had enough sense back then, even though I was kind of libertarian and cringe. But as I learned more about the issue, I realized just how wicked of an act it is, and there's no justifying it. I mean, if you want an example, just look up what a 10-week-old fetus looks like. Okay? It's so obvious that's a baby. After I learned more about abortion and what it is and what the doctors do in order to kill the child and how human development works in life, I just couldn't find myself justifying it. And I would argue that many pro-choicers are intentionally kept in the dark and made ignorant about the subject via our institutions, public education, etc., who only present this whole women's rights argument, forget the rights of the future woman being killed, by the way, that's irrelevant, but we're gonna frame it as a rights issue. And because of that, they just bask in their own ignorance and refuse to change. And that's a very sad thing. I also really appreciate the point Knowles made about crime. I mean, literally just a few days ago, you have an illegal alien who was accused of raping a 15-year-old girl. Okay, that's why he got arrested. He was let out of jail in Boston on a $500 bail. That's sick, okay? And that's the doing of leftist DAs who clearly have no regard for humanity. This guy shouldn't even be in our country in the first place. It's a disgrace enough that we let him in, but now we let him in, he commits this heinous crime, and we let him stay without even punishing him? Are you kidding me? It's sick, guys, it's sick. Let's go back to Michael Knowles.
So next week, there's gonna be a pro-abortion speaker here talking about how abortion is a moral good from a Christian perspective. How do you, how do you argue with someone who has such an extreme position about abortion?
Well, I have an extreme position about abortion, which is that it's bad to kill babies after they're born, or as they're being born, or just before they're born, or really any time before that they're born. I think that extreme position is easy to hold and easily defensible. The question you'll have to ask is what that person's premises are. Because there are 2 points to that topic. One, that abortion is a moral good, and 2, that it is Christian to kill babies. I seem to recall some verses of scripture coming from, a guy named Jesus Christ, who talked about he'll hold you accountable for whatever you do to the least of these, and tie a millstone around your neck, and it'd be better for, right, that guy. So I'd be curious as to what he says. I've never heard a coherent argument for abortion that did not also imply that it would be perfectly fine to kill other various human demographics. One of the arguments that cynical people make for abortion is that it's good because these kids, they'll all be on welfare and probably grow up and commit crime. And this is a very racist argument, because everyone who makes that argument is saying that it's good to kill the little black kids, but you wouldn't want to kill the precious little white kids who grew up in the suburbs. And the question you have to ask...
Look into Freakonomics. It's done by a University of Chicago professor as well as this leftist New York Times journalist. They actually have an episode on one of their podcasts about how Roe v. Wade lowered the crime rate. Yes, they seriously make that argument that because we're killing more babies, crime in America dropped. Ergo, it was a good thing. That's a real thing that they argued, and there are left-wingers who will cite that gleefully to prove why abortion is a good thing. Like Knowles said, racist argument, and it's based in eugenics. Which young black man in an inner city would you be willing to apply that logic to at the age of 24? And look him in the eye, because they're never called out on the absolute racial bigotry of it all. In New York City, more black babies are killed
in the womb than are born. That is horrific, and future generations will look on that barbarity with great moral opprobrium, and will look on the people who advance that with great moral opprobrium. And if this fellow is a Christian, then when he gets to St. Peter's Gate someday, I have a feeling that the eternal judge is not going to look very well on him spouting horrific heresy that has led people possibly of good faith astray. He will meet the millstone in the next world, and it would be better for him to correct his views in the present. All of that is to say, you should always take the level-headed approach. Do not, you'll notice I'm not yelling or screaming about this man. I'm not yelling or screaming even about abortion, even as the governor of Virginia says we should kill babies after they're born. Because the truth is on your side. You don't need to pretend that this is some passionate interest battle that is brutal and unreasoned. For him it is, for you it's not. So I would calmly rip apart his arguments, and then I would advise him to go have a quick confession and repent before the judgment day.
Thank you.
It's really disgusting seeing these so-called churches and so-called Christians, fake Christians I might add, pushing these kinds of things. I mean, just the premise of, oh, we're going to show the Christian perspective of why abortion is good. It's a non-starter. The Christian perspective for why it's morally good to kill babies, just sick. It makes me think of these, churches you'll see nowadays with these pride flags and all this other stupid stuff hanging around, just totally left-wing, signaling. They'll also often post quotes by Jesus Christ taken out of context. Like, for example, I'll often see something about Jesus said everyone's welcome to the church, so that's why we're this, that's why we're global homo. Obviously they don't say global homo, but you get the point. Very crazy, but as Knowles said, one day the Lord will judge them. I won't speculate on how he will, but I think we can guess. Well, guys, that wraps up the video for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Please be sure to comment below. Let us know what you liked, what you want to see next, and we'll see you guys again soon. Thank you, and God bless.